Hey everybody, welcome back to What Happened to You. Today I have Alex Schrock with me. Alex, thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to, even though it took me like forever. I'm sorry.
Oh
It's
no.
hard with kids and shit. And they're toddlers, so it's like even worse. So I never get a break.
Don't sweat it at all. I'm really happy to have you here now. What happened to you?
Um, so I guess I'll just start it off at the beginning. So I'm from Ukraine. I was adopted. I'm not like from the US. From what I know, my like original parents are like dead. And I don't know because my adopted parents kind of lie about everything. So like they died and that's why I got put in an orphanage. That's from what I know. But I got adopted at 5 for my brother's 10th birthday. It was literally me. I was like his birthday present, like not even shitting you. Like he wanted a little brother. My mom couldn't have kids anymore, and they went and adopted me. So that
for
literally,
her biological son's birthday, she got you.
yeah, they on my birthday is when they signed the adoptive, or on my older brother's birthday is when they signed the adoptive paperwork.
That's
Like,
quite a birthday present. Wow.
yeah, it was. I think it's like the funniest thing. Like I think I was like, oh wow, it was a birthday present. I think it's literally the funniest thing of like the whole thing. It's like it all started because of a birthday present.
Yeah, we got you a pack of Pokemon cards and another human being.
Yeah, and so, but while they were there, Ukraine was like, hey, he has a sister. You guys need to adopt her too, to adopt him. So they were like, you need to adopt both. So they adopted both. And then I went. They adopted us. We went back to Alabama. That's where I grew up. The rest of my life was in Alabama. I never moved anywhere. Just like that was where I was at. But really, like the abuse for me started off like right off the bat because I didn't know English at all. I knew Ukrainian. I didn't know English. But the one thing that I always tell people is like the one word that I remember always getting wrong, and I don't know why the fuck I remember this exact word, but was I would always say milk wrong. And my mom would like hit me if I said it wrong. And
How did you say it?
I don't remember. I can't say it wrong now. It's like weird. Like I can
Yeah.
say it like right now, but I couldn't like, it was just weird. But I would like pronounce the I wrong. So it'd be like milk or something like that, like
Milk.
around that. Yeah. So I would pronounce it with an accent and everything. But my mom hated it, and she would like take a spatula or anything that was like right around her, and just like start hitting me with it. And I was homeschooled for like most of my life, all the way up to like I was in 9th grade. So it's kind of important for later of why she got away with like so much abuse was because I was homeschooled for most of it. But so she would start hitting me and everything. Obviously I kept acting out because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I went to a therapist. My mom like enrolled me in therapy, and the therapist was like asking me, I was around like 7, 8 when I started going to a therapist, and she was asking me like what was going on with my family dynamic and all this stuff. And I said that I wasn't part of the family and I was just adopted, like everything. Like I really just didn't feel special. Like it was like I knew I was adopted. I knew I wasn't their kid. It was never like I felt part of their family. I knew I was adopted, knew I wasn't originally part of their family, and never felt like I was part of their family. And so I guess what the therapist told my mom was, hey, he doesn't feel included. He doesn't feel like he's part of the family. So my mom, in her brilliance, decided to go. Do you know what? I'm not sure if you've ever heard of skin to skin contact. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, we had to talk about that when I went to trial. They made a big deal about so I had to go to trial for when I spoke up about getting molested by my friend's dad, and they made a big deal about skin to skin contact because the majority of the times that he molested me, it wasn't skin to skin. And then when that did happen, that was like a big point of the trial because it's like,
Well,
this is non-accidental, something like that. But how do you mean it exactly?
okay, so what I mean is, so like when you're a baby, a lot of times they'll tell the mother or the dad it's skin to skin contact. It's so your baby is like a couple months old, right? You're holding your baby. You're like, it's like when a baby's breastfeeding, right? That's skin to skin contact. It's bonding with the kid, bonds with the mother, not in the way that you're saying, like for the legal term of it. It's more of a psychological thing for babies
Got
to
it.
like bond with. and everything. The only problem was that I was not a baby. I was 8 years old. So,
And sorry, do
my
you mean that she was breastfeeding, or was it like a different
no,
what?
so no, so like my mom wasn't like, my mom would like make me suck on her tits and everything. But I mean, she didn't have a baby any time around me, so she couldn't breastfeed. But it was like that's what she was trying to do, basically. So what she would do is she would like get me naked, she would be naked, and she'd start like having me like suck on her tits and stuff like that. And, you know, and that's where it started off. And it actually happened to my sister too. That part happened to my sister, right? What happened with me was my mom took it a step further. The sucking on the tits and everything, that's all that happened to my sister, because me and my sister were like really open with each other about exactly what happened. And what happened to like me was that my mom would then like go and be like, you need to come snuggle with me in the bed, like after my dad would leave for work, you know, and she'd like have my clothes off, and then she'd like make me like touch her stuff and like touch me and everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't think of anything of it. Like, I just didn't think anything of it. I didn't think like it was weird. I basically just thought, you know, it was normal, because I just didn't know. And like after that, my mom would still abuse me and beat me. She would, you know, lock me up in like the laundry room for hours on end. She would like beat the fuck out of me and my sister. Like one time, I didn't know where to put a potato masher, and she took the potato masher and she literally was just like started beating my head with it. And then when I was like 10, my mom would tie me to her bed, strip me naked, and she would take a belt to like my crotch, and she would just like whip it. And if I screamed, I would get 5 more lashes until I could like, I guess, not scream. Right.
Yeah.
It was a weird thing. Like, she was like, you can't make noise. You can't, you know, and everything. And
I just wanted to ask, because you were saying that there was a lot of there was a language barrier. Obviously, you know, you've been adopted at the age of 5. So at this point, are you guys able to communicate? Are you understanding what she's saying?
Yeah, no, so like by first grade, I knew exactly what she was saying. I knew English. I knew it very well. I had completely forgotten my other language. Like I don't know Ukrainian today.
For sure.
At all. So, and and then when I was in 2nd grade, right? So my mom had this weird thing. So like my sister, like she hated my sister a lot, right? But she would do like mental stuff with her more than it was like physical. So like if anyone complimented my sister, so like we were at church one time and someone called my sister's hair really, really pretty. My sister, when she was younger, had really long hair, right? And they were like, "Oh, your hair's really long and pretty." The next day, my mom cut it all off. Wow. Just literally just cut it all off, just because my sister got a freaking compliment. And my sister went and tried to get my mom's makeup one time to like do her makeup, and she like beat my sister's hands. And my mom, when I was in 2nd grade, had tried to enroll me in private school. My sister was in 1st grade. The teachers noticed and called, like, I call it DHR. I think a lot of people call it CPS, Child Protective Services. They called CPS, as they should have, because, you know, there was bruises on her hands. And my mom went and told me that if I told the truth, that I would get put back in the orphanage, right? And like at this point, I was so scared, because like I didn't feel like I belonged with my adopted family at all. But I also still remembered being at the orphanage, and that shit wasn't fun either. You know what I mean? So to me, I was kind of like, well, no, I don't want to go back to the orphanage. That's scary.
Did you experience any abuse at the orphanage?
I mean, it wasn't really that. It was like, I don't think it was like per se abuse, on intentional abuse. I wouldn't say. It's that there was Ukraine is a really, really poor country. They don't have any resources. They're in poverty, like a shit ton of fucking poverty. So they just didn't have the resources, right? So it wasn't intentional abuse. You know, it was more like malnourished. The kids were not being watched, so the kids were mean to each other. You know what I mean? It wasn't that it was like the adults being abusive. It wasn't that they meant to be abusive. It's not even, I don't think that they meant to have their kids in a bad situation, right? They just didn't have the money. Like, you know, like group homes in America are underfunded, and Ukraine is 10 times worse than that. So you're going to have a bad environment because there's just no support for it. And the reason that at the time that I thought Ukraine was worse was because I thought, in a way, the abuse and this me getting hit by my mom now was my fault. Because she would always say that I was being a bad kid, So in my head, I was like, well, if I just stop being so bad, if I just stop annoying her, I won't get hit. So like, it wasn't really that I thought that there was even abuse. It wasn't that in my brain I was comparing abuse. I was comparing me getting punished all the time to me being not taken care of. Right. But me being punished all the time, I thought was just because I was a bad kid, So in my head, so I lied. She told my brother that he would get arrested. And she told my dad that he would also get arrested because she said that my dad would be part of it. So like if they found out, if like CPS found out what had actually happened, that my mom had beat my sister with a belt on her hands, my dad would get arrested for being part of it,
And
so
what was your relationship with your dad like while this is going on? I was going to ask because I wasn't sure. So he was aware that this was going on then, or was this his first time finding out about the beating specifically?
He was aware, and it's something that I still like. I'm kind of confused about today, because like if I'm a dad now, and if I was married to someone who was abusing my kids, I would go and out her. I'd protect my kids.
Yeah.
But in my dad's head, he couldn't do anything. And it was this really weird conversation that I had when I was older with him that made me realize he literally just thought he could not do anything. So I would think I was like 15. My sister and my mom had gotten into a fight. The whole family got involved. Hands were thrown. My mom was trying to like punch my sister. My dad was trying to keep my mom away. My brother was trying to keep my mom away. I was trying to get my sister out of it because me and my sister have always been really, really close. So I always protected my sister. And, it went completely crazy. And, my sister like got her arm broken and everything. Right. And so everyone went to their rooms basically. And my dad came down and he said, "Hey, I'm sorry that this all just happened to you. And to this whole situation went out of control." And I said, "You could have stopped it." And he was like, "No, I couldn't." I was like, that Robin, which was my mom's name, was bad. Yeah. And my dad was like, if I go against her, I'll lose everything. He was like, "I'll lose my job, I'll lose my son, I'll lose you, it was like, "I'll lose everything." And he was like, there's no way. So I don't know what my mom told him or what my mom convinced him into doing or thinking, that he felt that he literally would be the one to get in trouble for everything, which is what I think. Yeah, my dad was never really abusive towards us. I mean, there was times where he like spanked us, but I don't think spanking's abuse. You know what I mean? Gotcha. There was times where I was genuinely a bad kid, and my dad did genuinely punish me for me being a bad kid. And
there's definitely a difference. Yeah, surely there's a difference between spanking and beating somebody on the nuts and dick with a belt. I think that there's a pretty substantial difference for sure.
Like my dad, like it was like my dad would only ever like spank me like 3 times, like actually like 3 hits. He would only ever go 3 times. Like he would never go overboard. He would never, and he would sit me down and tell me, "Hey," like one time I stole something from a store. He spanked me for it. I stole something. I totally understand why I got spanked for it. And he told me that. He was like, "You stole something. You can't steal. Stealing is bad, blah, blah, blah." So my dad was never abusive. He just never defended anything. He just never protected us. Yeah. And that's something that like my whole family has wondered why he couldn't just get a backbone, why he couldn't just stand up. Because, you would think like he's the dad, he's an adult, he knows everything, right? So why he didn't just defend his kids. My grandparents that I'm in contact now with that are like my family, they were his parents, and they said the same thing. They're like, "We didn't raise him like this. We don't know why he doesn't have a backbone. We don't know why he did this. We don't know why he didn't stand up for you." So like that's the one thing no one gets, is why he didn't stand up.
It's hard to say. I mean, it seems like certainly it was in part because of the way that your mom operated and lived her life. Everything that she did was like spawning from a place of like causing fear, or like she wanted you guys to be afraid. And clearly, maybe it was the type of thing where your dad knew that some of the stuff was going on, maybe all of it, maybe not all of it, but he felt like because he hadn't said something initially that it got harder and harder to speak up, because he felt like this is something that now he is maybe not condoning, but because he didn't say something right away, maybe the police would, he was more likely to believe what your mom was saying about the police being like, you're going to go to jail because you didn't prevent this from happening.
And around that same time, I was asking my friends. It was kind of weird how I did it. It was a really weird way that I did it. It was a really dumb way that I did it, because I just like straight out asked them instead of like printing it up in a like normal way. Cause like I was at church and we were like youth group. Everyone was like, it was after church, you know, like when everyone was talking. And I was like sitting by my friend and I was like, hey bro, it's like, has your mom ever just fucking beat your dick with a belt? And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm just wondering, has that ever happened to you? And he was like, dude, that's fucking gay as fuck. And I was like, yeah, you're right.
I don't know if gay is
and
pretty much not gay though.
Yeah, it's not. He was my age, so like he didn't really know how to fucking do that. Like it wasn't like he was like trying to be like hating gays or anything, but he was just didn't know what to say.
Well, it's a difficult thing to respond to. Yeah.
He goes and tells his mom that I asked him that when they get home. His mom calls my mom and is like, my son said that your son asked him if his mom beats him with a belt on his dick. And you know, my mom like came up to me and she was like, you can't be talking about that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why not? I was like, why can't I talk about it? Yeah. I was like, if it was just punishment, like you say it was, they would understand, wouldn't they? And she was like, you're being rebellious. You're having an attitude. And I was like, oh, am I? You know, I was a lot more forward because I knew like at this point I was like, I have nothing to lose. Yeah. And so then I went and like talked to my pastor about it. And I was like, hey, this is what my mom did. And I told him literally everything that happened to me. And he was like, well, your mom says you're a very rebellious person and that you lie all the time. And I was like, I'm not lying. I was like, I'm not. I was like, why would I lie about this? I was like, why would I come and just tell you that my mom did this to me? I was like, that's embarrassing. That's not something that I would lie about. Yeah. I was like, I need your help. And he was like, okay, well, we're going to keep talking. And then my pastor was a dumbass and told my mom that he was talking to me. And so my mom, she goes and she's like, if you were away from us, would you be happy? And I was thinking in my head, I was like, because my parents were like rich. So I was thinking they were about to give me my own place, my own apartment, you know, something. Right. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'd be so fucking happy. I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to ever live with you guys ever again. I don't ever want to talk to you guys. And she was like, okay, we'll do that for you. And I was like, okay. So in my head, I was like, bro, I'm about to like get out. I'm going to be fine. I made it. You know, I was like, I made it. I'm fine now. Well, the next day after school, because I'd been enrolled in public school now. The next day after school, she goes, okay, go to your room, get everything out of your room. And I was like, okay. So I get into my room and there's nothing in my room. Like my PlayStation is gone. My TV is gone. Literally everything's just gone. All I had was like a mattress on the floor, a pile of clothes, and a Bible. That's literally all I had. And my mom's right behind me and she goes, you're going to stay in here, and locks the door. Oh, and the thing about my room was it was a storm shelter. So it had metal doors and it was, so all she, and like deadbolt. So all she did was reverse the deadbolt. Right. So I had like in my, like, I was like, the key part was facing me and she had the like actual, like where I could switch it. Right. And deadbolts are really hard to pick because I tried it. Like I tried using like just random things I could find to like shove in there and try to like pick it out and everything. Yeah. So my mom just left me in there and she gave me ramens and peanut butter to eat for like what felt like a really long time. I think I was actually only in there for like a month. But it felt like a really, really long time.
She locked you in that room for a month.
Yeah, but it felt like 6 months. Like it really felt like 6 months. Yeah, I didn't have my phone. I didn't have nothing. I just had the Bible. I read that book like 7 times in that month. But
what was going on in your head while you were in that room? Like, did you think that you were going to get out ever?
No, I didn't. I was like, well, I wonder I was like, if they were going to leave. And then I kind of like lost my brain for a little bit. Like
Yeah.
I literally, because for like the first couple of days, I was just mad. I was like, fuck, I just got played. I was outsmarted, you know, because I thought all this stuff. And then I was like trying to figure out a way to get out. And then I was like, there's no way out. I was like thinking in my head, I was like, what do I have to like do to like convince my mom that I'm not freaking, you know, crazy or bad. And my sister was on a trip this whole time, like the whole time that I was like locked in the basement. And she came back. She realized that I was locked in my room, and she waited till my mom left to like go to town. And she comes down, she like lets me in, and she's like unlocks the door, lets me into the rest of the house. And she was like, why did she lock you in here? And I was like, I don't fucking know. You know, I was like, thank you for letting me out. And I was like hugging her, you know, I was like ecstatic to get out. And she was like, what do you need? And I was like, I'm hungry. Like, that was the first thing I could think about. I don't know why it was the first thing I could think about, but I was like, I'm fucking hungry. Right. And she's like, okay, well, she was like, let's go to the kitchen. Let's get you some food. She's like, I'm going to go call one of my friends and go to my friend's house, and we're going to call the cops. We're going to do something. They're going to take me to the police station. I'm going to tell them what's going on. And she was like, you need to come with me. And I was like, no, I'll be fine here. I was like, mom left. She was like, she's not going to be back for a good second. And I was like, okay. I was like, so I'll just stay here. Well, my sister left, and sure enough, my mom like literally comes back, walks to the door while I'm like microwaving food and everything in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I just look at her, and I'm like, fuck. In my head, I was like, fuck. You know what I mean? Because at this point, like my mom had already like tried to pepper spray me before. My mom had done like a shit ton of shit to me. I was like, fuck. Like, this is about to be bad. My mom looks at me and she goes, you need to go back downstairs. And I said, I am not going back downstairs. And she was like, you're an intruder. And I said, I'm not a fucking intruder. I was like, I'm your fucking son. Like, and I like screamed that at her. I was like, I'm your fucking son. Like, I was like, at this point, I was like, what is going through your head that you don't think that I'm your son? Right. Like you're calling me an intruder. Like I'm a literal stranger. And she was like, no, you're an intruder. Right.
Yeah, you're an intruder. You're trying to send an intruder into your house further downstairs. That's where we keep the intruders. Like, feel free to kick me out. I'm down to leave here.
Yeah. It was like, I was like, but we're in Alabama. Everyone carries in Alabama.
Yeah.
Right. Literally everyone. As soon as you turn 18, everyone goes and gets a gun and open carries and blah, 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 all this shit. Right. Mm-hmm. So my mom was carrying, and she goes, do you know what I do to intruders? Right. And I was like, fuck. I was like, what is about to happen? And my mom pulls out her gun, and I was like, fucking shit, right? And I just started running. Like, I ran out the fucking front door. Like, I just bolted and ran. And I was like crying. Like, at this point, I was just crying because I was like, I just got a gun pointed at me. I was like, by my own mom, who thinks I'm some fucking intruder, right? I like, you know, my sister had left one of her phones. It wasn't turned on, but I had been really good friends with the neighbors before. So while I was running, I thought in my head, I was like, well, I need to contact someone, right? And I was like, well, I need to connect to the internet to do that. So I was like trying to connect to their internet as I was running. And I like connected. And then I was like, well, I'm going to go I'm going to go to the neighbors and ask them to call the cops, right? And the neighbors were like an acre out because we lived in the country. So they were like an acre away. Mm-hmm. So like I was like running through my front yard to get to their house. So I was like running. I had accidentally like fucking called one of my friends, apparently. Like when I was putting it in my pocket, I accidentally just called like the last person I had talked to on my Facebook, because I logged into my Facebook, like on Facebook Messenger. And I just randomly called that person. I don't know how it happened. But then I went to my neighbors, and I was like scared for my fucking life. And I went and I was like, my mom just tried to shoot me. And they were like, what? And I was like, please. I was like, please call the cops, please. I was like, can I come in here? And they're like, yeah, you can come in here. They let me in. They locked the door. And I was like, they were like, what happened? They were like, we haven't seen you in forever. We've been worried about you. And I was like, yeah, I've been locked in my room. I was like, I haven't eaten anything. I was like, my mom just tried to shoot me because I got out of my room. They're like, where's your sister? I was like, she's with her friends trying to get help. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to call the cops. We're going to call the cops. So they called the cops. The sheriff's came out. My mom like ran, like got into her car, drove away after this. Like when I ran away, she drove away. I'm not sure if she was trying to find me or if she was just trying to get away. So the cops came, and they talked to me and they were like, what happened? I told them, and they were like, you were locked in a room. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, why didn't you call us sooner? I was like, I didn't have a cell phone, you know? They're like, okay. And they were like, they understood that. And they were like, do you have any witnesses that can say that your mom literally said that to you? And I was like, no. And then the neighbors were like, he came to our house. They were like, he was crying. And they're like, yes, we understand he's shaken up. They're like, but do you have a witness that says that she said that to him? Right? Because they're like, unless she pulled the trigger, there's no way for us to know if that's exactly what she said to him. And what? I was like, no. I was like, I don't. I don't. And they're like, okay, well, we're gonna talk to your mom. Well, my mom
good.
Well, my mom was a dumbass. She goes, they asked about me being locked in the basement. And she goes, yeah, I did that.
Wow.
She was like complete dumbass, because in her brain she was completely normal. And the cops like wrote in the report, because they asked about if she had threatened to shoot me. She just didn't answer. So like the cops were like, okay, so we have one person saying she did, and she just didn't answer. She never said she didn't, and she never said she did. She just didn't answer the question. She answered the question about me being locked in a room. So,
which is probably, more than enough to be a red flag from the cops' perspective that she probably shouldn't be around you anymore.
Yeah. And so then the cops called CPS, and CPS, did an investigation. And the cops are nice, because like they knew we were about to get taken by CPS. I guess they knew what was about to happen. And so they were like, well, we can wait here for CPS. And they were like, or unless you have some place where you can stay for a couple of days while CPS does their investigation. And then they're like, you're going to go to a group home probably, or you're going to go to, someone's house in foster care. So one of our friends let us stay with them for a little bit, for like 2 days, until CPS took custody. And then we got placed in a group home.
How did that feel?
I was happy.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like I had like my own mom like point a gun at me. I was like, I'd rather be in DHR than ever like have that ever happen again. You know what I mean? I was like, and I mean, a lot of my family was like, why didn't you just hold out? Because it was a few months away from my 18th birthday. And they were like, why didn't you just hold out? And everything. A lot of my family thought that way. And I was like, what hold out from what? And maybe actually get shot? Maybe, actually her pull the trigger. What is she going to say? I shot myself. I killed myself, because that's what she would say. I was like, what? I was like, what would you want me to do?
Yeah, you want me to go back into the room? You want me to go back to my room jail cell for another 2 months before I turn 18? That's insane.
Yeah. My grandparents that I'm with now, we kind of like had a disagreement, and they were like, if you had just stayed, because it was their son. My mom married their son. They were like, we would still have our son, right? And I was like, which would you rather have, your grandkid die or your son? From 5 to 17, which is 12 years, I said I was strong enough to take the abuse. And I was like, at some point, I just decided I couldn't take it anymore. Mm-hmm. I was like, what do you want? I was like, what did you want? And they like kind of understood that. And they were like, and I was like, and it's not like your son defending me. I was like, it's not like your son. Cause I was I was a dick with the way I said it, because I was mad. But I literally told them, I was
warranted. It's just so reasonable.
Yeah, I literally looked at them and I was like, your son that you raised, that you think you raised so perfectly and amazing, was the one who didn't defend me. So obviously it's part your fault. And then I told them even further, and I was like, don't even sit here and pretend you didn't know I was getting abused. You didn't call the cops either. It's like, you didn't call the CPS. I was like, don't sit here and act like everyone in my life didn't know I was getting abused and just didn't do shit.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we were scared. And I was like, yeah, what do you think about me and everything? So I was really, really, really mad, because like afterwards, the immediate aftermath of like how I felt was anger. Like I felt angry at literally everyone. I just felt like I blamed literally everyone. I blamed my pastor. I literally told him exactly what was happening, and he didn't do shit. And I almost, and like to this day, I think like my mom was completely and utterly capable of shooting me. People were like, oh, she only threatened. No, like I really think she would have done it. Like to this day, I still.
And I think that it's like, it's interesting to hear your story, because so many people are not believed when they speak up initially. And it really is like the perfect example of how you have to keep talking about it until people start believing you. Eventually it'll happen.
Yeah.
Generally, when it's people that are like emotionally invested in the people that you're accusing of doing these things, that's when you get the resistance and people not wanting to believe you. And it makes sense. It doesn't mean it's right, but even if you're not believed by everyone that you know, everyone in your family, that doesn't mean that it didn't happen or that you're wrong or that you shouldn't keep speaking up. And I think that your story just really highlights that, how you just have to be resilient and eventually people will believe you.
Yeah, well, and like for me, like I went through like a good second for like a good 2 years afterwards. It was, so I mean, I got married really young just because I wanted like that perfect family. I got like obsessed with it. I mean, I brought up my baby mama in my videos. It was going to be a toxic relationship right off the bat because I entered it in a toxic mindset. I entered it in wanting a perfect relationship, wanting this family that I never had.
And what was the time frame of that? So this happened when you were about to turn 18.
I got married when I was right before I turned 19. So it was about a year after everything. Like when I turned 18, I started doing all the paperwork to join the Army. So that got me out of DHR. My sister stayed in until she was 20 because CPS kept her in, and they'll keep you in and they'll pay for your college all the way up till you're 21. Like they'll pay for your whole college degree, which is good. And that's what my sister did. But me, I wanted to join the Army. I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to I was like, I'm done with being in a group home. I'm done living my life. Like I'm still like thinking about my mom and everything. I was like, I'm just going to move on. I'm going to be better. I'm going to show the world. Like in my head, I was like, I'm going to be better than everybody ever thought I could be. Yeah. You know, a lot of my family said I was a disappointment for not being strong enough. And so I honestly felt like I wasn't strong enough. So then it was proving a point. I'm going to go join the Army. I'm going to be super successful. I'm going to do everything that my family thought I couldn't fucking do. And I made a lot of dumb decisions because of that, you know, getting married young, having a kid young. I mean, I love my daughter. I love my son, but I was way too young, and the relationship was way too young to deal with that type of stress. And I was too dumb, too naive to pick a good partner who was also mentally mature enough to be ready for a relationship. You know, I went and I just ran with it. But I was in the Army, and I had I was going through the divorce, and this kind of like was where I woke up and I came back to like how I am now. So my grandparents called me. They knew I was getting divorced. They called me and they were like, you fucked up your family. Your kids are now going to have a split home. They're like, now neither one of your kids are going to actually have their parents full time. They're like, you really just mess everything up, don't you? And I was like really sad about that because my grandparents are people I really looked up to. So for them to say that to me, I was very, very frustrated. And so I was like, well, you know, my baby mama had her own new boyfriend that she had cheated on me with. My sister was like mad and was like, well, our grandparents are mad. So what are you doing? All this stuff. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And I went and I tried to overdose, and I just started popping pills. And I was at this like smoking pit area, and my friend was there, what we call battle buddies. He was looking at me. He was like, hey, he's like, I thought you already took your medication today, because I had ADHD. And I was like, no, I forgot it. He's like, oh, okay. Then he saw me like taking another one. He was like, why are you taking another one? I was like, I just want to concentrate. Yeah. And then he was like, are you okay? And I was like, I want to sleep. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, dude, I just want to fucking go to sleep. And he was like, all right, sorry, bro. And so like he started talking on the phone to one of his friends, and I kept popping the pills. And then he looks and he's like, saw me popping them. Like he like turned around because he wasn't paying attention to me while he was on the phone. And he like turned around and he's like, why are you still popping them? And I was like, hey, dude, I'm just going to go to my room. I was starting to tear up. And that's why like I was going to my room. And he was like, what's wrong with you? He was like, you need to fucking tell me before I go and tell the drill sergeants. Because I was in AIT at this time. He was like, before I go and tell the drill, it's like where you learn your job. So you go to basic training, then you go to AIT, and that's your specialized job. That's what you do in the Army. So I was doing that. And so he was like, I'm going to go tell the fucking drill sergeants. And I was like, don't tell them, I'm fine. Right. And I was like, I'm going to go to my room. I'll see you at final formation. And so I went to my barracks room. I had a house there, but that's a whole nother, like that was just me and my baby mama. After she cheated, they put me back in the barracks room because they felt that would be too much drama, too much potential for anything bad to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they moved me back into the barracks room, and she was at the house. So my friend texts her and is like, hey, he's taking a shit ton of pills. So then she called the drill sergeants. So then the drill sergeants came to my room. I was like starting to like feel tired. I was like feeling passed out. And they were like, you need to vomit right now. I couldn't vomit. So they called an ambulance. I got rushed to the fucking hospital on base.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me charcoal to drink, which is what they do, because the charcoal will soak up all of that shit. And like the nurse looked at me and was like, hey, why did you do this? You know, she was like, you're so young, you're so this and everything. And I was like, just no one cares. You know what I mean? I was like, I've never had people that genuinely care about me. I was like, I've lived my life to prove everyone wrong and to like be super strong. And I was like, I'm tired of being strong. I can't be strong anymore. And she was like, well, what is something that you really want that you can do? And I don't know why for the life of me I said this, but I was like, I want a vanilla iced coffee from Starbucks. Like, that's what I said. And it was just because I had been like drinking the charcoal shit and it was disgusting.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just want a vanilla iced coffee, bro. And she, after her shift, literally came and brought me a vanilla iced coffee thing, right? So then like that made me like think, I was like, maybe people do genuinely care. So automatically after you've gone and tried to commit suicide in the Army, you're reevaluated for your mental health, because, you know, the Army's mentally draining. It's really hard. And so they gave me a psychiatrist, right? And I went in to the psychiatrist and I treated it at first just like every other psychiatrist I had been to. They just don't understand. They're not going to believe me. They're just not going to care. And she was like, you know, she was like, you're not really opening up. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, there's just nothing. I was like, I guess I just had a bad day. She was like, having a bad day doesn't mean you go and kill yourself. So why did you do it? Well, she was like, what? Tell me about your life. Tell me why you feel like no one cares. And I just didn't tell her. And so the next session, she came in and she was like, I want to tell you something about yourself. And I was like, okay. She was like, you're scared. I've gone through my mom abusing me, my mom beating me, like all this shit that I've gone through. And I was like, I'm not fucking scared. Yeah. And she was like, you're scared of women. And I was like, what? I was like mind boggled at why she came up with this idea that I was scared of women. She was like, you purposely stay away from me. You pick the seat that's farthest away from me. You can't make eye contact with me. You like, don't touch me at all. She was like, not even a handshake, nothing. You're scared, which makes me think that either your baby mama was super abusive to you, or it was your mom, or some figure that was a mom to you. Little did I know that she was like an ex-profiler for the FBI. And she was like, you know, she was like, I think you're really, all your choices that you made in your life is based off your trauma, off your mom. And then I just was like, fuck, you know, she was like, I was like, she actually realizes what's going on. You know, she showed me like that, all these like triggers that I had and all these things that I was going through and why I was doing all these things. And I realized, I was like, you know, I've lived my whole life scared of this trauma that I went through. I've lived my whole life scared of what my mom did to me, scared of what anyone else could do to me, and proving that I was strong because I felt that I wasn't strong. It wasn't really that I figured it was my mom's fault. It was more my fault in my head because I just didn't stop it. Right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that I could stop. There was no way I could stop it. I was a child. I was a kid. I didn't have the power to stop it.
Yeah. I mean,
my dad
literally didn't know any better. I mean, it was like you had nothing to compare it to. That was your first experience with this new family. And it's such a common theme amongst victims to put the blame on yourself. I know I felt the same way when I didn't speak up the first time. I was like, well, is this because I like this? Is this because this is what is supposed to be happening? Is this normal? Like, you just don't know any better. And so as it goes on, you create justifications for why it's happening. And oftentimes you end up being the reason in your head why it's going on. So I totally empathize with you.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I struggled with like the same things of, did I like it? You know, with my mom, like, you know, molesting me. I literally didn't have sex until I was like 18. And even then I was so fucking scared of it that I literally couldn't even get hard. I was just so scared of the whole thought of it. Like, and like, it was with my baby mama, like, cause I lost my virginity to my baby mama. And she was like, what in the fuck is going on? She's like, do you just think I'm ugly or something? And I was like, no. I was like, and then she was like, okay. She was like, do you need to go like watch porn or something? She was like, you need to go watch that. And I was like, yeah, let me try that. So I go to the bathroom. I still couldn't get hard. My heart was racing so bad because I was so scared of it and everything. I mean, eventually, like, I got over it and like I was able to do it because I have 2 kids. But
How were you able to get over it?
I literally just closed my eyes and I just thought about anything different. Like I literally thought about anything different. I was like, I'm just going to keep thinking about some porn video I watched or some this or some that, something that I'm comfortable with. Right.
Yeah.
And I was just like letting my mind bounce to anything else that I was thinking about and not trying to think about my mom. Right.
Yeah, it's funny. Like normally guys are thinking about other things so they don't come too fast. You're thinking about other things so that you can stay hard.
Yeah, like I was literally like I was just trying so fucking hard. And and then I like a little bit also that I noticed, and I think I made a video about it. But I noticed that I was like rougher. Like then I had no problem. And like my psychologist was telling me about that. And she was like, yeah, because you're taking your anger out of, she was like, that's what you're doing right there. She was like, your mind is still thinking about your mom. You're just not realizing it. And you're just taking it out on her because you're mad. And now you feel like you're in control. Now you feel like you have the power. Like one time I was having sex with like my baby mama and she like tried to ride me. It's technically mentally like a dominant position for the girl. It freaked me out so bad. And like started having like a panic attack. Literally, I like started shaking really bad, and so I like just stopped having sex. Like I just didn't have it because in my head I've always said I'm never going to become like my mom. Right? Mm-hmm. I take psychology now, and a lot of times the person who's abused becomes the abuser, right? Because they don't deal with their trauma in the right way, so they become the abuser because in their mind it's all they've known and that's all they can comprehend. And I was like, so like, I realized I was like, okay, so I'm doing all this dumb shit. I mean, everything was like consensual, right? But it was still like a warning sign to me. You're going down a bad path. You keep doing this, you're going to go more extreme. You're going to push the boundaries. You're going to try to do something else, Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, what do I need to do? So I took sex out of it. And I was like, all right, now I'm just not going to be scared of women, right? But I still was because sex was not the only thing that my mom hurt me with, right?
Yeah, totally.
So after me and my baby mama got divorced, I just didn't get with anyone. I just didn't date anyone. Kept just like being friends with women. And then I started my TikTok page and I was like, no one's going to realize that men go through abuse. No one's going to realize that men go through anything without men going and sharing their story. I was like, because the only way that people are going to believe that men go through abuse is if I go and I tell this horrendous story that happened to me, right? Mm-hmm. And the more I told it, the better I felt, the stronger I felt from it. Like I realized I was like, you know what? Everything that I've always wanted, proving that I'm stronger, proving that I'm better, now I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can actually help victims. I can actually show people this is how victims feel. And so that's why like now every time that I like post my videos about me, I try to like correlate it to how victims feel. You know what I mean? So like if I like if I do a story about my mom, I'll be like, this is how it felt. And it really helped me. And then I was hearing all these stories of women, like women were DMing me. I'm not going to say her name because I promised never to say her name, but she was like, hey, I saw one of your videos and really related to me. And she was like, my brother raped me and my family didn't really do shit about it. I was like, and I felt so sad. But then I realized I was like, you know what? The same feeling of fear that I have towards women and the same feeling that I have of women could possibly hurt me is how these women feel too. You know, my story's pretty out there. Like my story's pretty crazy, but so is getting raped by your brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
And I realized that like all these victims, like all of us have our own stories. And I was like, why am I scared of everyone because of one person when all of these people also feel scared because one person fucked their life up, you know? And that's kind of like where my opinion changed. And I was like, not so scared of women anymore, you know, and that was like way earlier in my TikTok and everything. So that's kind of like what helped me like change. Right. Cause I was like, I've started my like TikTok as soon as I was strong enough to be like, I can share my story and I can tell you guys, but I didn't realize and everything. And so like the more I've done like these videos, the more understanding I've gotten, the more like realization I've gotten of how everyone else feels too. You know what I mean?
100%, man. And it really is an issue that transcends gender and age, and it affects everyone. And it's cool to see you taking the power back and transforming this thing that was causing you to not be able to trust women into something that now you're becoming a resource for women. I mean, I imagine that girl who reached out to you about her brother raping her probably hasn't spoken to many people about that. And that's an outlet that you provided for her that you never would have been able to provide if you hadn't healed your own issues with women. And it's an amazing thing about TikTok and social media in general, is being able to put us in touch with these people who we never would have been able to communicate with otherwise, on this super profound level. That's like, hey, like, I see you, I know how you feel right now, and you're not alone. And knowing that you're not alone is one of the biggest things. And it just makes it feel like you actually can heal. And I think it's just awesome, man. How has the experience in your life affected your parenting style? How do you do anything in particular now that you think is a result of your childhood and your experiences?
Yeah, definitely. So I don't spank my kids. I don't I don't use any physical form of like anything. I'll talk to my kids and I'll tell them what they did wrong and everything, and I'll just put them in timeout. I'm deathly scared of becoming exactly like my mom. It's definitely one of like, being a parent is one of my like biggest fears, that I'll become like her or do something remotely similar to what she did. I choose to use more words, voice that opinion, voice that emotion. And then I tell her, you know, she'll be like, Daddy, she's like, well, she doesn't cuss like that, but she's like, Daddy, I hate you. She's like, Daddy, I hate you. You didn't give me YouTube. And I'm like, oh, you hate me? Why do you hate me? She's like, because you didn't give me YouTube. Instead of now, I've like taken her hating me to her communicating, me being able to communicate to her why she can't have something that she really, really wants. And that's something that my parents never did. They never communicated with me, you know, ever.
Fostering that open line of communication is so important for your overall relationship with your kids, and anyone really. Kids that feel like they can fully express themselves to their parents are so much more likely to come forward about an experience that they've had with a friend or another parent, some sort of an abusive experience that they've had. If they feel like they can tell you anything, they're so much more likely to tell you that. And you really have taken, you've learned so much clearly from your experiences, and are now providing a foundation for your kids to grow up in that you might not have had when you were growing up, but now you can provide that for them, which I can imagine is extremely rewarding. And I'll let you go just after this last question here, because I can hear them communicating in the background.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to ask you is, what advice would you give to somebody who has been through something similar or might be experiencing something similar to the story that you just shared today? What would you say to somebody who is in that situation, who's hoping to get to the point that you're at now?
Okay, so it's something that I really think is really important. It's to forgive yourself. I had to look at myself and realize that I blamed myself so much for it. I forgave myself for letting it happen. I forgave myself for the times I couldn't stand up for my sister. I forgave myself for the times that I lied and the abuse continued. And once I forgave myself and I realized that, you know what, you don't have to blame yourself anymore, is when I realized that I could start opening up. That's when I started to have the most understanding towards other people, is the moment I let myself off the hook. Mm-hmm. So, and then also to realize that person is the sole person to blame. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I do know what you mean. It's so easy to be wrapped up in assigning blame to yourself for whatever reason, not speaking up fast enough, or not being strong enough, however you feel. But I think you're right. I think you have to forgive yourself for whatever perceivable mistakes you may have made or things that you should have done differently. There's so much to be gained from forgiving yourself right now. And you are at your most helpful to other people who have been through something similar if you have forgiven yourself. So yeah, man, I just want to thank you so much for doing this, for taking the time. I know you're very busy and have kids to attend to. So thank you so much for doing this, man. And for anybody who wants to check out Alex's page, it's super interesting. He's got great content. And what is your handle, by the way, Alex?
Alex Schrock Official 1.
Alex Schrock Official 1. Anything else that you'd like to plug or say or anything like that?
I don't think so. I don't think I have anything to plug. Yeah. My kids came out right as I was like, they're following me right now. But
All right, man. Well, I'll let you go. And
right.
thank you so much for taking the time, man. Best of luck with everything. I look forward to continuing to follow your TikTok page.
Yeah, same to you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Talk soon. Take care.